Well, welcome back to another edition of the podcast, which is called Life After Work, where four of us, for the last 2 years almost, have been chatting about all things going on in the world. And last week, I forgot to introduce the guys. Not going to do that again. So with me today on the podcast is the usual band of greatness, coming live from Skiathos in Greece, Mr. Paul Davis, the author, podcaster, and all-round good egg. Hello, Paul. How are you?
Hi, Rod, and good afternoon to you, gentlemen, Phil and Ash.
Good afternoon.
Everyone good?
Good afternoon.
Coming from down the road, literally down the road, is Mr. Phil Harrison, who is a now more of a full-time athlete than he is a full-time insurance man. And so, Phil, are you competing currently at all, Phil?
Just did one last week, so I'm in a recovery mode at the moment, taking it easy for a week or two before getting back on it, and doing more of the horn for hire stuff at the moment rather than the. That's my other, of course, it's my other thing, my trumpet playing. So I've got a few band gigs going on.
www.hornforhire. There you go.
I'm going to put it up as my name, but
you can
censored.
You can sponsor my show. It might just increase the number of people who listen initially. And somebody who was always for hire is a great dentist, and my personal dentist up until he retired, Mr. Ash Sharma. How are you, sir?
All well. How are we all? Good to be back again.
Nice to be back.
Yeah,
It's nice to be back.
absolutely.
Well, we decided with the Jubilee celebrations coming up, we would share our thoughts on the Jubilee and also share and talk about the thoughts of other people who are using maybe the occasion to raise their profile, if you like, and put a little bit of argy-bargy into it. But it is the Queen's Jubilee coming up in a week or so's time. So, gentlemen, I guess the big question is this something that, you're looking forward to? Is it something that you celebrate, or is it something you'll be avoiding, like the grim death, if you like?
I kind of, what I don't get is this. I remember the 77 Jubilee, the Silver Jubilee.
Mm-hmm.
Remember it like it was yesterday, the street parties and everything that went on with it, because obviously I was just a young kid. But I don't remember all the other Jubilees in between. And this one has suddenly been more in the news. And I don't know why that is. I can't.
A good point, that, Paul. Yeah, I'd agree with you.
Yeah, so maybe the Royals haven't had a great deal of luck over the last few years, and they've had a few skeletons come out of the closet. They've had a few issues, and I'm wondering if they've sort of played it down a little bit. But now, because we are, if you like, an independent country again, they're making more of this. I mean, it's a Platinum Jubilee. It's a massive achievement by the Queen to get that far and rule for that far. But are they perhaps making a bigger song and dance about it because we are now independent? We have now we've had Brexit.
It's a good question. Well, firstly, I'll agree with you. I think I remember the 77 Jubilee clear as day. Maybe it's because we got given a crown. Was it called a coin? Do you remember the coin you got given?
Commemoration coin.
I've still got it.
Really? Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, I've still got mine, the Jubilee crown. But I think it's more to do with the fact that at that age, it's a similar thing to the fact I can remember all the FA Cup finals in the 1970s, but it starts to blur when you get into the second half of the 80s. I think it's just when you're a kid, your life has been shorter at that time, so every event is more memorable. As it gets on, the years repeat themselves, sounding like an old fogey now. But I think that's what maybe the memory thing is about. But you raise a very good question, and I'm not sure of the answer about whether more has been made of this one, because this is Platinum. This is
75, apparently.
75.
Oh, so 70th. Apologies. 70th anniversary is a monarch.
I don't particularly remember the 50th. Did you do anything?
I don't.
Now, again, it could be about our time, my time of life, or our time of life, because if that was in 2002, I had small children then, so my head was I was probably more keen to sleep than do anything else when that came around. But I don't know. To pick up your point about the deliberate low profile or high profile approach, I would suggest that the other than around the Princess Diana time, the royal family has not had quite such bad publicity as it has had in the last year or two. Now that's I would say it's distinct from the Queen personally.
Yes.
But as the royal family, I mean, there's been some pretty bad stuff go on. I don't know. It might be because of the Queen's age that they're making more of this one as well. So there's a few factors maybe at play.
I think I'm right in saying she'll be one of the longest serving monarchs, if not
certainly the longest. She is already the longest British serving monarch.
Even on a world level. So I mean, do you not think there's a little bit about actually, take away the whole nation side and the jingoism and all that side? It's just actually, quite nice for the Queen to get celebrated at her age. Possibly, she's not getting any younger. It's just quite nice to celebrate somebody who's been quite decent. I mean, the rest of other people in her family may have not been as reliable and may not have been as focused or whatever, but she herself has never really fallen short of her job.
No, absolutely. I'll come on to the song maybe later, but I do like the singer. Even if you don't like the song, you can like the singer, can't you? And I think as an individual, the dedication and service she has shown to her role, whatever I think about that role, is truly commendable.
I'd on the back of that, Phil, I think the fact that the way that certain members of the royal household have embarrassed the monarchy, if you like, I think she's been very significant. Because if I was the mother of those kids that are going out doing it, I'd be on the TV going, "Oi, you're causing embarrassment." But she's very. I mean, I know the Breds keep the thoughts to themselves and everything like that, but I think she's been very. She's had decorum in the way she rules and is a queen. She's not. I think she handles the stress of her kids very well. Doesn't rise to, because any sort of parent, if the kids are up to that sort of stuff, you be in the media defending them or not defending them. But she's very good at keeping
decorum.
I don't know the word. I don't know the like. I've lost my mind. It's like she keeps a distance. A dignity, but she keeps a distance from the sensationalism and the bad behaviour. She keeps, and like you say, it's that individual person that she recognises. Look, they get up to whatever they get up to, and they are, of course. But I'm the Queen, and I will rule this country as a queen should rule this country. So I think she's done very well in the way she rules the country.
Could you imagine actually the number of audiences she's had with prime ministers in the past, right? And the personal thoughts that she must have about them all the way through. I forget who her first prime minister would have been, but she's seen more prime ministers than any other British monarch, I'm sure. What would it be like if she appeared on something telly to give her thoughts of that? And yet never once, I think, has there ever been a leak as to what the Queen has thought about any particular person. There may have been
one or two little snippets. I gather she didn't. She really didn't like Blair, did she? I can't remember.
No, she didn't. She didn't warm to Lionel Blair, did she? Because she thought
it was his tap dancing annoyed the hell out of her.
Yeah, the tap dancing annoyed him. So Tony Blair apparently was. She thought he was too familiar. With
that's
Queen.
it. Yeah,
very familiar with her. Like they were all friends and weren't. He was the prime minister. She was the queen. And he's come in with that big smile, all singing, all dancing.
You can imagine that, couldn't you, actually?
Yeah. I brought Una Stubbs in with him.
Hey, Queenie. But, she never has. That's never come out. And there's something about... And if you think she's had a role with a lot of punches, that whole Diana thing, I actually think that she came away... stronger as a sort of nation's mother a little bit in that time, or grandmother in that time. But she's managed to, she's been very modern, or at least listen to the people around her that's been very modern and really adaptable across those 70 years, to be fair to her.
Yeah, I think she's done a good job. But if I can just, I know Ash is keen to get in, if I can just throw this in. So we've got the Jubilee. And we talked a little bit about this off air, and you know that I'm peeved about it. So we fly the Union flag, the Union Jack flag. It's a symbol of Britain, it's a symbol of the monarchy, and it's a Platinum Jubilee. So some guy went on, photographed Regent Street today with all the flags across Regent Street. It looked tremendous. And he said, oh, this is tremendous. Somebody's immediately tweeted, who's now got a great deal of following and a great deal of replies, to say it reminds him of the Nuremberg rally, Nazi Germany, and said we are in fact all Nazis, and we're ignorant, and we should ban the Union Jack for this. On the back of that, yesterday, and this is what annoys me, because they have, okay, a guy on Twitter, you know, he's got a certain platform, and he might get a few thousand replies or whatever, but we have the forum of media, television, whereby the presenter on Loose Women, India Willoughby, has come out and said that she believes when the Queen dies, Boris will make himself Führer because we are turning into Nazi Britain, and it's a symbol of racism and a symbol of sexism and all this. And she's done that, and Loose Women gets quite a few million viewers and listeners and what have you. And like I said to you off air, and I'm going to say it on air, do you know, if you don't like the culture, the history, the traditions and the Union Jack within Britain, move away, go and live in another country and try and upset their government or their people about their morals and their customs. You'll probably be shot on sight. But unfortunately, Britain being this stiff upper lip, we do react to it. I react to it, and like Phil says, they do it to get a rise out of you.
Well,
and they have.
Well, I was going to say and make that point really, that I think it's such a nonsensical comment that, to my mind, it cannot be anything other than a bit of bait to just, because it's just such nonsense. The flag is just a symbol of what Britain is, and everybody will have their view of what Britain is and what it represents. Is Britain racist? Not predominantly, I wouldn't have said. Is there any element of racism in Britain? Of course there is, like any other country that I could probably name. So exactly. I think it's just such a nonsense statement that it can only be designed there as media bait to get that sort of reaction, create a bit of sensationalism. And then it brings, what it does allow for then is a good debate about, well, what is it then? Are we proud of what Britain is? The flag is just a representation of whatever you think Britain and its culture is. Just to pick up one specific point there, if it's somebody British who, to just challenge you on the point of saying, move away, because there are elements of British culture and British history fairly recent, whether it's football hooliganism, which was a British thing more a British thing than other places for a certain period of time recently. Go back a bit further and get on an even more serious level, certain elements of colonialism, some quite dark things went on in Britain's past. That is the past. We acknowledge that, we move on. But if you pick up all these things about our culture, and I don't think there's anything wrong with, I'm not being very eloquent here, but what I'm meaning is the culture will change, and you've got to change it as well. And you only do that by challenging certain elements of it. So to say, to never challenge what the culture is and be saying, well, if you don't like what is, move away, I would disagree with that. I'd say, no, I'm British. I don't like these certain elements of culture. Can we not, let's discuss this. Let's defend what we can defend. Let's argue it out. And what if we come to a conclusion that, yeah, actually we could do some things better, we should move the culture on, and it morphs, it evolves.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I agree with the fact that, you know, if we did something like kill dogs to eat them, I wouldn't like that as part of our culture. So yes, I would challenge that part of the culture. But something like a flag that represents our country, I wouldn't petition against removing that. And I am British. I think,
well, it's clearly a nonsense, because all it is a symbol of the culture. So you're saying, what, you don't want there to be a British culture, and whatever that might be.
exactly. And
It just
somebody
makes
saying
no
it on Twitter,
sense.
somebody saying it on Twitter, it is getting an extra thing. But somebody said it on TV, on a powerful media, and that's what gets me. And like you say, they're British. Now, if they come on and say, "Look, I'm India Willoughby, and I want to challenge the fact that," because she's a transgender person, I want to challenge the fact that our culture is not fully in line with transgender. Okay, yeah, you can challenge.
Yeah,
that
exactly.
culture.
That's how it should be approached.
Yeah, that's how. But to come on and publicly say you're all Nazis and we want to get rid of the flag, no, that's not challenging. That's riling people like me.
Yeah, no, I agree. You can't defend that statement, because it just doesn't it doesn't make any sense.
Oh, I don't know who this person is. All I can say is she's never been in East Belfast during the 12th fortnight, because she would have seen umpteen red, white, and blue flags over the years, and she obviously clearly has never walked down the Mall to Buckingham Palace on any state occasion, because every time there's this head of state visiting, the Mall is draped in the flags of both countries, our country and the other country as well. So I think does seem to be a little bit of opportunism going on there.
I mean, this takes me back. I mean, when I was younger, when there was these St. George's flags were going to be put on taxis in Blackburn and in Bolton, and apparently on the news it was saying that some communities were not happy about that happening. And then later it was found out that it wasn't actually that at all. What it was the fifth column element, like at that time there was an organization called the National Front, and they basically were deliberately putting out stories like some communities aren't wanting this flag and on taxis and draped over this. I mean, no one even mentioned it. No one even said anything. And so what had actually happened was that they would stir up this racism, if you like, from nowhere, when no one had actually said it. So my point here is that we don't know what the political leanings of the person who did this Twitter thing is, showing these flags and saying it's this, that, and the other. All you've got is some random guy who's actually just put this person on, or woman, who's put this thing on, and it's just and it potentially can rile up people, and it can bring out a negative outlook on with some people saying that, oh no, this is terrible, I can't believe it, Union Jack's being defamed, you shouldn't be like that. And it's, I tell you now, I mean, I was saying off air that, on our street, we've all ordered, our Union Jacks from Amazon. You've got Asian houses, black, houses from black families and everything are in there ordering. It's great pride. It's fantastic. It's brilliant. And it's fantastic to see. And I think it's what happens is it's just when stories like this can get hijacked. And then what happens is that you almost feel uncomfortable, whereby you think, oh, what are people saying about this? Why are they saying that? And I just think we just need to, I just remember it really well, whereby I used to go to school afterwards and think, what do you reckon to this then, hey Ash, these St. George's flag, we're not, your lot aren't letting us put it on taxi driver. And I go, oh my God, who the hell said that? It's just ridiculous. And it was, it's the fifth column, isn't it, almost? They're actually trying to connect, create some internecine carping and division, and that's, you've got to be careful with that. So I'm all for having an adult discussion when it's open, but it's when people are just coming out with little digs and with anonymity, so you don't know what's happening, where it's come from, what the source is. If you're that like Paul was saying, if you're that obvious about it and you want to say something, come out and say it. Have an adult chat, have an adult discussion. And if it's got any water, which it hasn't, then we can take, you can discuss it and take it apart at that point.
What I agree, Ash, entirely. What rallies people more? We're coming up to a Jubilee. What would rally people more about the Jubilee before the Jubilee than rally round the flag than a bit of people criticising it? Doesn't that? It's sort of the Alex Ferguson. Whether it's Alex Ferguson and they all hate us. They all hate us. It's us versus them. Now, very positive and beneficial in the context of a football team trying to defeat other football teams in a league, or whether it's Thatcher's Falklands. What turned it round for her? She was in the doldrums in 82, 83, was it, until the Falklands happened?
Yeah.
And she got the landslide victory because everybody rallied round the flag. And it's just the best, easiest way of creating a bit of, we'll support this, create a bit of external criticism of it, and people rally around. I just think
that's great if you're going to rally around the flag, but I don't, not at the expense of other communities. That's the thing.
No, exactly.
That was the big fear. But I can tell you now, it's just, I remember, what was the other Jubilee? Platinum now. So it was the Diamond Jubilee. Was that 2012? I remember the street was closed down. We had flags, we had meal, we had a foot kick, dance verse. I remember it. It was fantastic. Everybody had a fantastic time. Everybody had a wonderful, wonderful time. I just don't see why people just can't get on with it, go with it. And if you don't like it, okay, have an adult discussion about it without, without trying to rile everybody up, which is what these comments do, don't they?
Do you know the thing that slightly gets me on this is that actually nobody, this country is heading towards a point where it has nothing different about itself. There seems to be a campaign to try to take anything that the UK, Britain is good at and just demote it, just ruin it. And nobody ever talks about the royal family as an asset to this country for tourism, for attracting people in, and actually the net benefit that they have. Now that's before you look at any hints of building a nation or a culture just purely on economic terms. They actually bring in money to the country because there's a lot of people come to the UK to celebrate royalty, right? And the Jubilee will actually will create will economically be a good thing, and it's actually quite good for brand Britain, right? So
so the monarchy is our Disneyland, is it?
Well, to be honest, Phil, yes, actually, a little bit.
Well, if it is, then on an economic, I didn't know that. I didn't know the balance of effects. But to me, it's a little bit irrelevant because it's a bit more important than that to me, in the sense of
course,
it's not what will sustain us economically. It might have a little bit of benefit.
No,
to me, it's more about what it represents. And as I said before, I love the singer. I don't like the song particularly, and I wouldn't suggest for a minute deposing the Queen. She's earned the right to see this out. But I will say that if we didn't have one already, and I know this is if your aunt and uncle and all that, but you wouldn't create it. So when you look at what are the reasons for, what does it say about us? Since it's a representation of British culture, is our culture, don't we want to be a meritocracy? Don't we want that rather than acquiring positions because of, who you descended from? To me, there's something really, really not admirable about that.
But you would rather have a president?
I would, because it's something you elect, you have a choice in. This is something we don't have a choice. They are presented.
Yes, I get that, but we have the choice of who we elect as Prime Minister for our various laws and everything. So what difference does having a monarchy have? Because because
they're supposedly representing me. I don't feel represented by a hereditary monarchy.
Well,
and if a lot of people do, I get it that's fine. I'm just, as you said before, I'm entitled.
I'm certainly, don't get me wrong, if the listeners are listening, I'm not having a go at you trying to get a rise out of you. It genuinely interests me, because to me, the monarchy, I love history. So I love all the history of kings and queens.
Yeah.
And yes, they don't, having a monarchy doesn't affect me either way. I wouldn't fight to keep them in. I wouldn't fight to take them out. But I find it interesting that your view, because I know a lot of people who said I would rather have a president than a queen, but it's not the queen who makes the laws. It's the prime minister that puts it towards the law lords, and then it's passed. So she's not representing you. That's what your prime minister does.
Well, but as Rod said before, she is in some way a representative of that's what it's supposed to be. If it's to be anything more than a Disneyland, it's got to have some cultural significance. And I just think it's, more than anything, I just find it really strange and odd, the deference we have to this family, that if you go back to where this came from, those were very brutal times. And if you were going to be monarch, you didn't get to be monarch by being a non-brutal shrinking violet. So I'm not even happy with the fact that is carried over into the modern world, and that they have their incredible wealth that I'm sure could be put to much better use than the Queen personally and the members of the close members of the royal family accumulating such wealth in such straitened times. I find quite repulsive, to be honest, to be frank about it.
I somewhat get that.
She did pay a bigger fine than Boris Johnson paid, didn't she? She bailed her lad out, and Boris Johnson didn't even get a fine, which is now being looked into again, apparently.
I mean, personally speaking, I mean, I'm listening to all your discussions, with great interest, and it is, as you say, Paul, it is fascinating. The reasons why people do and they don't. But I think, leaning more towards Phil's side, if you're looking at society now, it's moved on. If you're looking at the way things should be, as you say, it should be a meritocracy based upon what you can achieve yourself, rather than inherited land, inherited wealth. Like you've got the House of Lords, which is basically peerages, basically based purely and simply on an accident of birth. That's all it is. If you were born in that family, and then you got to enjoy the spoils of all that. I understand the history, because as you say, history is, it's rich. The heritage is rich. It's very, very rich. But like Phil was also saying, is that it represents a lot of dark things as well, doesn't it? As well, history. Positives, of course, but also a lot of negatives as well. But I think as a badge of modern times, I'm not sure if it really fits.
No, and I have to agree. I don't think, as I say, I wouldn't vote them out or vote them in. I like them being there, but that's because of what they do, bringing in tourism, and because of the history. But I think in these modern times, I have to agree and say, I don't think we need a monarchy in these modern times. I think we're all too individualistic now. We don't need to be, the king and queen on the old days. If you didn't like what you said, you got hung or beheaded for treason. That's how horrific it was. Look at Henry VIII. I don't like you, wife number one. I'm going to take your head off. And they got away with it. You can't get married. Well, I'll tell you what, I'll invent a church. We'll call it the Church of England. Then I can get married again. So there was a lot of skullduggery and a lot of twisting of various laws because you didn't argue. Apparently, Henry VIII was fantastic at tennis because no one dare beat him because they get beheaded. So that's that. But in today's modern society, I like the fact that we have a monarchy there, probably more because of the tourism it attracts. But I don't think in a modern society we do need a monarchy.
I worry that it's a symbol of deference for a start. There's something sinister in that to me, as well. The fact that we all should know our place and be deferent, and how you've got to when you meet them. I think it was a D.of.E. ceremony. You get told what you can and can't do, and how you should address them, and how to doff your cap. And I'd say that really, really does.
So Phil, how do you feel about the Platinum Jubilee then, Phil? So is that something you want to celebrate? Is that
I'd say going back to the Queen, I think on an individual level, I think she's fantastic. And I think the dedication she became Queen in the 1950s, early 1950s, didn't she? And we've said time has moved on since then. But from that date, she has dedicated herself to the service for the good of the country, and her intent has been nothing but good, and her conduct has been nothing but admirable. So just as a personal, individual level to her for that achievement, she's been a wonderful ambassador for the monarchy, but it can't depend on that individual's
It's just a shame she's been let down by other members of her family.
And this is the point, that there's no guarantee that the next one isn't a character more like Prince Andrew. And just to complete my point about the deference thing, there is a lot of deference to the royal family, and it gives unchallengeable power. And it worries me that it's not been tried yet, so let's keep an open mind. But whatever Prince Andrew may or may not have done, I worry that his position, let's talk hypothetically, someone in a position of power, do they get more protected from wrongdoings? And whether in the form of cover-ups.
We know the answer to that, don't we?
Well, and so there you go. There's another, it's all part of this whole thing about deference. They can't be challenged. They can do no wrong. They won't be punished for any.
Or can you not extrapolate that to other things as well, whereby extraordinary wealth, whereby you get billionaires or whatever. So they do the same sort of thing, don't they?
Extreme wealth gives me those same concerns as well, that it gives the power, and with that comes the ability to cloak wrongdoing.
Yeah. I'll tell you what is good about this Jubilee, and it's come at a very good time, because it's a Platinum Jubilee, and because we've come out of this COVID. Have you noticed how many street parties are popping up?
Yeah.
And the communities are coming together. I think it's great. I think it's absolutely
that is good.
Great. The community around the corner from Jane back in Manchester, they've got the permission from the council, who said, yeah, go ahead with it, to block off, like you do, a whole sort of street into a cul-de-sac, and they've got magicians, a bouncy castle, food, and I think it's great that it's bringing, because this in my mind, this is how our country started to fail, is that we lost touch with communities. COVID brought it back a little bit. We all had that sort of wartime spirit where we were helping, but honestly, I used to know everybody on my street when I was a kid. I know who lived at number 9, lived at 11, blah, blah, blah. I wouldn't have a clue who lived next door but once me now. And I think we need something to bring those communities back together and help one another. So I think it's come at a good time.
So in some ways, you can read too much into this thing, couldn't you? Because at its lightest point, it's just an opportunity for the nation to come together, celebrate something, just like we celebrate many other things. And let's face it, we're not going to win a World Cup for a while. So you need things that bring people together, and that's what actually lockdown did. And these type of occasions help. So any excuse for a party, you'll always be able to knock it, because there'll always be somebody who'll knock it for some reason. And let's face it, the royal family have been easy targets for a long time, but her herself, actually, I don't know how the lady actually manages to keep going sometimes against the backdrop of what her family actually put her through. I really don't. And if I think there's a big challenge about what will eventually happen with the royal family and how it goes forward after her, because we've all been used to her. I mean, we go back to 77, and that seemed like a drop in the ocean. That's 25 years ago. Unbelievable. No, sorry, not 25 years ago. It's 45 years ago. That seems unbelievable,
You make a good point there, Ron. It's just occurred to me that I wonder in some sense whether the Queen's longevity and long reign actually has had some sort of potentially negative effect, in that it hasn't allowed for, if you think about it, if Charles becomes king whenever next year, he's already an old man. Even if you, let's pretend for a minute I believe in the monarchy and I support them, that would you even Charles is not my generation. It's more William who should be taking it forward now. So actually the Queen being in that position so long maybe has caused I don't know. You'd have to ask the next generation.
I
There's a bit of a
think
disconnect.
I think Phil, she's held on because she's not trusted the next tier down. And
I think you're right.
Very possibly.
I honestly think that Charles, I think that's the reason why she's held on. She's waited for William to get to a point, and I think honestly the deal is done. I think the deal is
It'll
done.
straight to William.
Yeah, I think it will.
I thought that, and I'm exactly on board with what you said, Ron. I think for Elizabeth to hand it over a lot sooner to Charles would be like giving an alcoholic the keys to a cocktail cabinet.
And
I don't think he's
Why can I just ask why is that? What's wrong with Charles?
I just don't think
he doesn't connect with the public. He doesn't connect with the public. I think she's actually more modern than her age would suggest, and she realizes society has changed, and he does not connect with the people at all. And William and in Kate and in the young family, monarchy is a young people's game in a way, and they connect more. They won't connect with everybody, but they connect more with people than Charles ever will do.
Does that actually make sense? Yeah.
Plus, he upset millions of people with the Camilla.
Yeah.
Story.
Well, I was going to say, I think it was largely because of that, wasn't it? That at the time when the Queen was starting to get a bit older, and you might have been looking at Charles as a potential, well, it was always potential king, but right, this might be becoming a reality sooner rather than later. There was massive turmoil over the Diana and Camilla thing, and that didn't go down well at all. Yeah. But actually, if we're talking about the individuals, I think in some way Charles is his greenness, take his greenness and concern for ecology, which has been there with him from being a young man.
Before it was fashionable.
Yeah, before, exactly. So I think in some ways he was, as a young man, ahead of his time, and in a way it's a shame for him maybe that that whole thing. You're right, Paul. It became very unpopular because of that for a time.
He has been, Phil. I mean, he was triumphing or being a spokesperson for the green economy well before it became actually
organic farming, sustainable stuff.
But the problem is it's style as much as content, and his style and his projection doesn't fit with today's society, and so. But you know, regardless of that, the Jubilee is about celebrating her. I don't think it's about celebrating royalty. It's about celebrating somebody who's committed her life to serving her public, and has done it through some extraordinary times, and actually picked it up at a very, very young age. And you think if anybody taking a senior job at the age she was when she became Queen, unbelievable.
What was she, 22, 23?
I think it's that.
When she was in 1952, and to be given that, you're now head of the country, you're head of the monarchy.
Yeah.
It'd be like, well,
and you imagine you walk, I don't know, I can't remember who her first prime minister was, but you sort of think, you know, they would have thought for a young whippersnapper here, young, and a woman as well. So
yeah,
we'll have her for breakfast.
Macmillan.
Was it
early 50s? Eden Macmillan.
I was wondering if it was
not Churchill.
Churchill did have one more term, yeah. So maybe even it was towards the end of his term.
Actually, no, I think you're right, Paul. I think she did. Churchill was one of them, wasn't it?
Yeah, but didn't he get knocked? Didn't he get unelected within about 3 years?
Yeah, he did. He no, but he.
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, but you can imagine some of the people that she's been up against, you know, and in that time, and she's weathered through it. I think, you know, when you talk about leaders of any organization, they have to change a lot, and she's actually done pretty well to adjust, or at least give the impression of adjustment, you know, this, regardless of what she thinks. So, you know, from my point of view, it's a celebration of somebody who's actually committed and been loyal, and led a nation through a lot of hard times.
I think you're absolutely right. I think that's the thing. We're not celebrating the monarchy as a whole here.
No.
We are, like Phil said, it's the singer, not the song. We are celebrating what she has achieved since 1952. You know, the ups, the downs, the highs, the lows, and she's done it with dignity and held her head up high, and you know, she's got the respect from the rest of the leaders in the rest of the world, or the majority of them. And I think, yeah, it's a great thing to celebrate her. And on the back of that,
Churchill. It was Churchill, wasn't it?
Yeah, 51 to 55, Churchill.
He came back. He had an old term, didn't he? So
yeah.
So
Rumored to be her favourite prime minister.
Yes, he was. Yes.
Oh, that's right, because she broke protocol to at Churchill's funeral by arriving before his family. That's right. She made an exception for him.
See, class act.
Yeah.
Well, look, I don't know what I'll be doing to celebrate. I am going to do a special show. Actually, I'm going to do a Jubilee show. Going to go through the major events of her life and what was in the charts at the time, something like that. I don't know what to call it yet, but I'm going to do something like that. So I'm going to do.
We've got a street party going on. So was it you, Paul, that was saying that we're getting streets cordoned off? Well, ours is being cordoned off, so we can't drive or anything like that. So we actually say we got flags. We're going to have food being ordered. So it's going to be lovely. It's going to be really nice.
No, I'm going to be doing then. Party at Ashes Street.
You're more than welcome.
Ashes Street. There you go.
I'll bring my Jubilee trifle round and we're
yeah.
Well, guys,
welcome.
Always good. And just there's something that's popped up on my screen which is quite interesting. Apparently, somebody in the BBC were learning how to use the text that comes up at the bottom of the screen while they're live on air. And they typed in Manchester United are rubbish, which the BBC's apologised for, but somebody said for once the BBC maybe got it right.
Well,
there you go.
Not a very controversial statement at the moment, is it, to be fair?
there you go. So that's just popped up. BBC apologises after Manchester United are rubbish appears on the screen. So there you go. Phil, you're not working for the Beeb, are you, these days?
It wasn't me. Gov. It wasn't
Ash,
me.
no,
sorry.
there you go. Anyway, probably a United fan. Anyway, well, I'm waving a red, white, and blue flag literally as we speak. We'll be back next week with another topical discussion on life after work. And as always, if you've ever got any thoughts on these things, if you got a topic that you want us to prepare massively for and discuss at length, and give us a shout at radioalti@gmail.com, and we'd be happy to pick up your thoughts. Guys, until next time, take care.
Have a good Jubilee.
See you all.
Take care. See you now. See you next week.
Be safe. Enjoy the Jubilee.
I feel like we should end with the national anthem.